Okay, it's 6 o'clock now. Shall we start or should we wait for another couple of minutes for more people to join? There are about 21 people right now. So, okay, I'll just wait a couple of minutes and I'll start the session. All right. All right. I think I'll start now. You all can see the full screen, right? If you are unable to hear me or see the full screen or see the presentation, you just write on the chat and then I'll see what's up. All right. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's module on ecology and environment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to certain concepts and then do a question and answer. All right. So these questions they may come up in some of the assignments. I mean similar questions, and even in your final exam, actually. All right. So let's proceed right to it. My name is Gautam. I am a PhD candidate at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Okay. So let's go to the lecture and yeah. So what are the contents for today's module? So first is what is sustainability? Okay. So you might have seen the lectures already from the previous week, but I just wanted you to understand certain concepts like okay, uh, why do we talk about sustainability and what is sustainable development? Okay, and second is how do we measure it? So there are different dimensions and criteria, and there are indicators that we need to measure how sustainable our systems are or processes or in general like any region or country or anything you can use it to measure the sustainable development of anything. Yeah. So the third topic is science, technology, and sustainability. So what happens here is like okay, you have new technologies coming up. So how sustainable are they, and uh, how are they brought into the market in the first place? Okay, you can't just bring any technology and say that people will like it, right? So there are certain rules to be followed before certain technologies can come into the market. Okay, and the next topic is corporate sustainability. So that is you have various companies, maybe you have some factories, you have industries, and all of these can they just use resources indiscriminately? Of course they can't. So where do we draw the line? So we will talk briefly about corporate sustainability, and then there will be a case study on urban sustainability. That is we measure the sustainability score. I mean, we basically score different cities, okay, and then compare them. All right. So this is a study conducted about 8 9 years ago, and then finally I'll be giving you a set of questions. The answers I won't be discussing today. I'll be doing the answers in the next lecture, in next week's lecture. All right. So what is sustainability? So the first is, I mean, the foremost definition of sustainability, the United Nations Brundtland Commission, they defined sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So what does this mean? It means that, okay, you have some resource today. Let's take for example coal or petroleum. Okay, petroleum is a very good example, because about 10 years back, when I was doing my graduation, I heard that within 40 years the petroleum and natural gas is going to be over. So what happens after that? What will our kids use? What will our grandkids use? All right. So this is a continuing debate. It's not only for petroleum, it could be the same for coal and various other resources. All right. So it's very important to talk about this, because we cannot simply use up all the resources and then leave nothing for our future generations. Okay. So, and the key phrase here is need of all stakeholders. So who are stakeholders? Okay, it will come up in one of the mm, next slides actually. Stakeholders are basically, if you take any decision, if let's say there is a government that takes any decision, okay, there is a policy coming. Let's say the government has introduced some policy. The government cannot just say that, okay, I have thought about this policy, I am just implementing it, without considering the aspirations or objectives of different people. Okay. I think you'd have seen the case of some dams and all that in the previous week's lecture, right? So you can't just build a dam without considering the ecology of that particular area. Okay. So what if there is flooding and it will affect a lot of people, right? So we need to consider all of these things. Okay. So that includes terrestrial as well as marine ecosystems, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, and the resources required to sustain economic development well into the future. So this is what is known as, this is something called intergenerational justice. So maybe 50 years, 100 years into the future, we still have to have at least as much resources as we have currently, okay, so that our future generations can also live the way that we did. Okay. So, sustainable development should work on reducing the burden on environment, ensuring equitable development. What is equitable development? If some development is happening, we cannot just consider the rich people. We cannot make the rich richer, so to speak. We need to ensure that everyone gets a part of that development. Okay. Then ensuring enough resources for the future, and active participation from institutions. Institutions as in you have the government, local municipalities, panchayats, even and even R&D institutions. All right. So the sustainability dimensions and criteria. What are dimensions? So basically, what we need to consider when we talk about sustainable development. So for instance, we have economic, environmental, social. These are all the dimensions. So economy is, we talk about the profit. Okay. Or let's say you're buying something, so you want to pay as less as possible to procure that certain item, right? So that is your that is a cost for you. Okay. So that also comes under economics, right? And then of course we need to consider the environment, that is the planet and the people. Okay. And some researchers have also included an additional institutional dimensions, that is government policies or governance in particular. Okay, and in terms of the country itself, economy would include GDP growth, for instance. Ecology would include greenhouse gas emissions, pollution, loss of biodiversity and ecosystems. And equity, that is society, will include poverty, wealth distribution among various groups, health, education, social security, and so on. So, in general, there should be a balance between the main dimensions of sustainability. However, based on the circumstances, uh, one uh, one dimension can be deemed more important than the other. All right. For instance, if let's take the case of COVID. All right. Last year, when we had the second wave, right? So we needed oxygen. So there is an innovation from the Indian Institute of Science. A group of researchers have developed a system to produce oxygen from air, but this system uses a lot of electricity. Okay, can we go and say this, since it uses electricity and the electricity comes from the grid, so which is mostly supplied by coal, right? We cannot say that okay, since greenhouse gas emissions are increasing because of this system, we cannot implement this system. Why? Because people are dying, people need oxygen. So there is an urgency to deploy such a system. So we don't have to look at the other dimensions in cases such as this. Okay. So we look at the science, technology, and sustainability. So what do we see? Like how do technological innovations affect sustainability, and which stakeholders benefit from these innovations? Which stakeholders are affected by these innovations, and how are new technologies introduced in the market? So there is a fundamental difference between invention and innovation. Okay, so invention is when you have a concept or an idea, and then from there you generate a design or generate a working prototype or something, and it stops right there. Okay, innovation means you develop a marketable idea, that is you go further and then you actually demonstrate that this works in the market, and then you commercialize it. Okay, so that is the difference between innovation and invention. So when we talk about technology itself, yeah, so there are raw materials. These raw materials, one second, I'll just use a pointer. Yeah, so raw materials are consumed. Yeah, conventional technologies use these raw materials, and then they fulfill people's needs and aspirations, that leads to human development, and that is a positive, right? And that leads to economic growth. Economic growth leads to more jobs, but on the downside you have more demand for natural resources and the cycle continues, right? So you need more raw materials, and it is converted, and uh, there are more needs, and then it keeps on increasing. All right. So this causes depletion of Earth's resources, and then of course pollution and emissions. For instance, we have crude oil. Okay, so when we use crude oil to produce petrol and diesel for cars and bikes, you have depletion of crude oil happening, and then emissions from these bikes like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, particulate matter, and so on. But that fulfills the need for transportation. Okay, and that leads to human development, of course. And when it fulfills the need for transportation, it leads to economic growth, right? But once that is done, more and more people need this, the population will also increase, and due to the economic growth, more and more people will start traveling, so to speak, and there is more demand for crude oil, and then this cycle continues. Okay. So how do we go from a concept or an idea to a marketable product? Okay, that is done by the innovation chain. So you have a basic idea, okay, of basic idea of what you want, right, of the technology or of the concept basically, right, and then you do a basic relevant basic research. Okay, and what is relevant basic research? Whether this concept itself is feasible or not, you need to check that first. Okay, if whatever you thought you have this idea and it's not feasible, then you have to stop right there. I mean, you can't proceed further, right? So relevant basic research is basically that you're testing the feasibility of your idea. Okay, then after that comes applied research, that is whether technology can be developed, the technological feasibility basically. Basic research is the feasibility of your idea itself, and applied research is the feasibility of your technology that you are going to develop. Then comes the development part, that is design and development and engineering for manufacturing. In the design and development part, you produce a prototype, you have a design, and then you produce a prototype, a working prototype, and show that your idea actually works. And then you have to manufacture this, right, this product. So you have to do some engineering to design. You have to design the manufacturing plant itself. Okay, and then it goes into the manufacturing line. Okay, then you produce that product, and then of course you market that product to make it commercial, and finally you have that product in the market. Okay, right. So the next uh, next is the technology and society interactions. That is, yeah. So how does this work? So why do we need technologies? Because the society dictates what kind of technologies we need. Okay, if today I say that I need electric vehicles, okay, it's because someone else has told me, or because it is the general trend in the society right now. Okay, so I don't want to go for a petrol vehicle. I want an electric vehicle. Let's say I want to go for an Ola or another scooter, or let's say Tata Nexon EV or something like that, right? Because of course I know that it's environmentally friendly, better than petrol vehicles. Okay, and people around me have purchased it. Okay, so the social wants are dictated by the society. Then we have the filter. Okay, the filter, that is, there are so many different wants or different needs of the society. All of that cannot be fulfilled. So so some of them are ignored. Okay, and some of them are transmitted, that is to the next stage. Okay, so this filtering process, it is operated by decision makers at 4 levels. Okay, one is the national level, that is your government and national R&D and so on. Then the agency or corporation level. Then you have the institutional level, and then the individual level. Okay, so these are the 4 levels by which this filter works basically. And these transmitted demands go to the educational, science and technology institutions, which in turn goes to the innovation chain to produce new technologies. If technology is available for certain demands, then of course it goes directly into the industry, agriculture and services, and then some products and services are produced which fulfill the social wants. Okay, and the guidelines for the new technologies are also given by the society. Okay, so this is how the interaction works between society and technology. So let's look at corporate sustainability. So as I told earlier, we talked about stakeholders. Okay, so who are stakeholders? So there are shareholders, and then there are stakeholders. see, so the original profit model, they were concerned only about shareholders, that is people who have invested in the company, invested money in the company. So you have to fulfill their demands, and you have to make sure that they make a profit. So the stakeholders are people who will be affected by any decisions taken by the company. Okay, for example, you have customers, employees, or society at large, or even the environment. So for this purpose, we have something called the triple bottom line. So the three P's of sustainability or of corporate sustainability: people, profit, and planet. Okay, people is, that is society, profit is economic sustainability, and planet is of course environmental sustainability. So the triple bottom line approach requires corporate will and responsibilities in addition to regulations. So if a company says, no, I won't treat my chemical waste, I'll just maybe emit it to the environment, or just discharge it to a nearby lake or something. That is of course not triple bottom line, right? So they have to be responsible enough to do the treatment, or to ensure not to pollute the environment. All right. So just a second, I'll yeah, okay. All right. So, so it is necessary for all the companies to be wary of this, okay, and they can't mistreat their employees, right? They have to pay them proper wages and proper salaries, and they can't say, okay, they can't pay very less wages and then make them work, right? Like maybe 200 years ago, some people from India were taken to the Caribbean to work as bonded labor, where they were paid very minimal wages, but they had to work, right? So it's not, we're not in that era anymore. We are in the era of equality, where people should be paid proper wages, and then we should ensure that everyone gets to benefit from the development of the company. Okay. So the triple bottom line approach will lead to better resource use efficiencies, and customer and employee satisfaction, lower costs and higher profits, reduced pollution, enhanced product and service qualities, and better company reputations. Okay, so Harvard Business School professor Rebecca Henderson has said that it is possible to do the right thing and make money at the same time. So basically, doing business with ethics. So that is what is triple bottom line. Okay. Now we can talk about the case study, that is benchmarking urban sustainability. This was a case study carried out by two researchers in the year 2030. Okay. So it evaluates whether the present pattern of urbanization in India is sustainable by comparing Mumbai and Bangalore with Shanghai, London, and Singapore. Okay. And comparison is based on the three dimensions, main dimensions, and governance or institutional sustainability. And benchmarking is carried out considering threshold high and low values. I'll explain this shortly. Okay. So what is the methodology that they have used for carrying out this research? So first is design of indicator based framework. That is, you need to decide what are all the indicators, or what you need to measure. For example, are you measuring GDP growth, or are you measuring how well the wealth is distributed, or are you measuring let's say the demographics, or the greenhouse gas emissions, or let's say when we come to healthcare, let's say number of beds, number of hospital beds per 10,000 population. These are some of the indicators that you need to. So you need to decide what kind of indicators, and it needs to be exhaustive. You can't just say that okay, I will just do 3 or 4 indicators and I'm done. Okay, so you have to have an exhaustive list of indicators for economic, environmental, and social sustainability, and of course the governance part as well. Okay. Then you have the indication, identification, and prioritization of indicators. Okay. So once you have the exhaustive list of indicators, what you need to do is you need to prioritize them. Okay. You can do them by different techniques. There is something called multi-criteria decision making. I am not going into the details of that. So basically what happens is, based on perception or based on certain physical attributes or something, you assign weight to the indicators. Okay. So let's say that in my view, environmental sustainability is more important than social sustainability, in case if I say that. And I say that the greenhouse gas emission is and I assign it an arbitrary weight of, let's say, 60%, and let's say the wealth distribution as 40%. So when I do my aggregation, right, obviously when you have more better greenhouse gas emission score, or lower greenhouse gas emissions, then the city that has lower GHG emission will perform better, because I have given more weight to greenhouse gas emissions. So that's how this happens. Okay. Then you have the quantification of indicators, where you collect data from the ground and then you quantify them. Okay. So for example, the GDP growth, these all these data will be available with the government, from government agencies and so on. Okay. And then normalization or standardization of indicators. So normalization of indicators, it's given here, the actual value minus the minimum threshold value. Okay. Here, actual value minus minimum threshold value divided by maximum value minus minimum threshold value. So what is this threshold value that we are speaking about? Now here we are talking about cities, right? So you have Mumbai, Bangalore, and you can take any other city, okay. Now the minimum and maximum threshold values are defined for hypothetical cities. Let's say that you have some best city in the world, which may or may not exist in reality, but you create such a city and then you assign a score to that based on your experience or based on your perception. Okay. So let's say that I'll take the example of GDP growth rate. Okay. Let's say that in my perception, 15% GDP growth rate is a very good. So I'll take that as the benchmark, the highest benchmark, and then I come to the lower side, the worst city in the world, or so it's hypothetical again, and I say that okay, if there is a city, or if there is a country where the growth rate is, let's say, 0.1% or something, so that is my lowest benchmark in this case. Okay. The highest, so I have just defined what is my highest and what is my lowest. Okay. And these could be actual cities also with actual data. Okay. So let's say we take a city somewhere, or we take a country somewhere in the west, where the GDP growth rate or GDP itself is pretty high on purchasing power parity basis or something. So we can set that as our benchmark also. Okay. So that is completely up to us. Then we have to develop composite indicators. So what are composite indicators? So you have many simple indicators, a collection of simple indicators, and then you aggregate them to calculate the composite indicators. Okay. So composite indicators is basically a collection of simple indicators, and then based on that you calculate the dimension score, that is if in economic dimension you have, let's say, 10 composite indicators, and each one, let's say, has 5 simple indicators, so overall 50 indicators, you calculate the overall score, and that will be the economic sustainability score. Okay, and then same you do for environmental sustainability, then you do the same thing for social sustainability, and then you have the composite urban sustainability index, where you add them all together. Either you can either do an arithmetic average, geometric average, or root mean squared, one of these three methods. Okay, and then you have the final score. So, yeah, like I had said, composite indicators are obtained through arithmetic, geometric, or root mean squared of individual indicators. So, let's say you have 5 simple indicators, and then you club them together to make a composite indicator. Okay, I'll give you examples of simple and composite indicators shortly. Okay, and values of for dimensions are obtained by aggregating the composite indicators, as I had just explained. So, you have, let's say, in one dimension, let's say the environmental dimension, I am considering greenhouse gas emissions, then acidification, eutrophication. There are many such indicators, right? And we can also consider the water quality and air quality, all of that. They will all be composite indicators under environmental under the environmental dimension, right? So, what I'll do is I'll club them all together to obtain the score for the environmental sustainability. Okay, and then I'll compare it with different cities. If I'm comparing only the environmental sustainability, I just have to do that and then compare it with another city. I have to do the same thing for another city and then compare them. Okay, and overall sustainability score is obtained by aggregating the value for each dimension. So, you have your economic, environmental, social, and your governance dimensions. So, you aggregate them all together, and then you have the final sustainability score for that particular city, or if you're doing it for a country, you can do that all as well, or for any technology or a process, you can do this for anything. All right. So, we were talking about composite and simple indicators. So, these here are simple indicators or individual indicators. The per capita income in purchasing power parity per year, and the income distribution. There is something called Gini coefficient, which we use for measuring the wealth distribution, basically, and then the city gross domestic product, which is also measured in purchasing power parity, and this is a composite indicator, the income. So, I say that when I'm measuring income, I measure all the three simple indicators, and then finally I have the score for income. Okay. So, these are some of the results obtained by that study. Okay. So, you have the economic dimension, social dimension, and environmental dimension, and in each one you have different composite indicators, like if you can see here income, growth, consumption, infrastructure, transportation, and so on. And in social framework, you have demographics, education, health, equity, safety, and all of these things. So, I'll just take an example right here. So, income we have just seen, the per capita income, distribution, and city GDP. If you take infrastructure over here, infrastructure services and urban equipment, here we have a road length, per capita connected load, that is electricity, then hospitals and bank branches, colleges, schools, number of telephone landlines, number of mobile phones, number of internet connections, share of households with access to telephones, and share of households with access to mobile phones. All right. So these are measurable indicators. You can get the data readily. Some of the data are readily available either with the government or some agencies, and then you can just aggregate them to obtain the final score for this composite indicator, that is in infrastructure services and urban equipment. Now if you can see here the indicator values for all of these 5 cities. Uh, let's look at the income, for instance. The highest is London, and unfortunately, yeah, the lowest score is for Mumbai. Obviously, our Indian cities, in comparison to more developed cities, are not very have lower score for income at least. Okay, but when we talk about climate change, of course, Bangalore has performed really well. Okay, and yeah, and even Mumbai is fairly well, because mostly Mumbai relies on the local trains for transportation, and the private vehicles are not such a big portion of an average Mumbaiker's life, right? But in this case, you can see Shanghai has not performed very well in terms of climate change, whereas Singapore and London have performed decently well. Okay, but when we come to water pollution, you can see that London and Singapore and Shanghai have performed well, but Bangalore and Mumbai. Mumbai is just average. Bangalore is downright abysmal, I should say. All right, and then of course we look at the health. Health is of course better in the healthcare is better in the Western nations or the developed nations, and it's not it's average in Bangalore and Mumbai. Okay, so the overall score is given here. So for in the economic framework, let's see, Shanghai has performed very well. Then London, Singapore, then London, and then finally you have Bangalore and Mumbai. Okay, and then in the social framework you have London, which has performed relatively better than the other cities, and when it comes to Mumbai, Mumbai has the lowest score over here. And environmental framework, of course, our Bangalore and Mumbai have performed reasonably well in comparison to the other 3 cities. And in the composite urban sustainability index, you have the final scores here. Bangalore and Mumbai, they have performed, I mean, it's average, it's not too bad actually, overall sustainability. But compared to all these other cities, it's still slightly lower, right, in terms of overall sustainability. Okay, so I'll just discuss a few questions with you. Okay, some of these you might, most of these are from whatever I've just told you right now. Okay, and this is something that you might have seen in your previous week's lecture. So with reference to sustainability definition shown in the figure on the right, which of the following is true? Okay, so you have social, economic and environment are the 3 dimensions of sustainability. So you have the intersection of social and economic, then the economic and environment, and then social and environment, and then the intersection of all these 3. So you need to find what is you need to just write down what is A, what is B, what is C, and what is D. All right, so I'm not giving you the answer right now. You can just prepare the answers, and then or if you know the answer, you can write it in the chat, and then we can discuss if required. Okay, and second question is, okay, sustainable development is said to occur when uh, so these are the four options. Okay, so we use the resources indiscriminately, that is without any limit and without consideration for the future. Okay, and the second is, second option is economic development occurs quickly, but the economically weaker sections do not make living wages. Okay, so we are achieving fast economic growth, but the poor people remain poor. That is the meaning of the statement. Option C is the needs of all are taken care of, including intergenerational justice, that is the needs of the future generations. All right, and number 4 is we do not use any natural resources in order to preserve the environment, even if that means our own needs are not met. So let's say that okay, if we use a lot of petroleum, then we won't have enough petroleum for the future. 100 years into the future, there won't be any petroleum left. So what this says is we stop using petroleum altogether. Okay, and yeah, we just stop traveling. So that's the whole point about this. Question number 3 is okay, so if you need some time to copy these down, I can just give you some time without rushing it. Can you? Okay, I see a lot of answers here, but can you just mention the question number also? So if it's 1B or 1C, something like that. Okay. So because I've already done like a couple of questions and I don't know which. Well, actually, the recording will be uploaded to YouTube, and the link will be shared to you. I think if it's not shared, then I can do it also. I'll just find out how this works. All right. So 1B, let's check. Yeah. Okay, I think it's right. I'll just I'll reveal the answers in the next session. All right. Okay. And the second one, can people yeah, to see, right? Okay. Okay. So okay, let's go to the other questions, and yeah. So which of these following are false? The false statement. So the three main dimensions of sustainability are economic, education, and environmental. Okay. The some studies have included an additional institutional or governance dimension to measure sustainability. C, a combination of indicators is called a composite indicator, and D, combination of composite indicators is a dimension. Okay, so do you already have answers? Okay, fine. Okay, you can also note them down, and then we can have a discussion or something in the next next session, right? Then we have this. What is the innovation chain useful for? First is maintaining the existing products, introducing new technologies in the market, removing unsuccessful products from the market, or none of the above. Do we have answers for this yet? Okay. The fourth question. All right. Okay. So I have some answers for the fourth question. We'll come to the fifth. In the innovation chain, the term research and development refers to A, basic and applied research only, B, basic research, applied research, and in engineering for manufacturing, C, basic research and design and development, and D, basic and applied research, design and development, and engineering for manufacturing. So do we have some answers? Okay, okay. So I I do have some answers here. All right. Okay. Next we have, which of the following statements are true? Okay. So shareholders requirements are given utmost importance in a profit based approach. TBL is triple bottom line. Triple bottom line approach takes care of needs of all stakeholders. C, emissions of greenhouse gases do not come under the purview of TBL approach. Or D, both A and B. Okay, so question 6, do we have some answers yet, or do you need some? All right. Okay, do we have more answers for question number 6? Alright, so we have some answers here. Okay. Next, this is an application based question. An industry produces a product Z. Okay. The production process involves a harmful chemical as an effluent. You can just read this question as I do, because I mean, yeah, it's a little bigger. So yeah. So this chemical X, it causes human cancer upon prolonged contact, and if it is discharged into water bodies, it contaminates drinking water sources and destroys marine ecosystems. The treatment of this chemical X would reduce its effects. Yeah, so if you treat it, the effects will be reduced. Okay, so the cancer effect or the marine ecosystem, all that, those ill effects will be reduced. Okay, so which of the following measures indicates a triple bottom line approach? So option A is provide health insurance to workers and save on costs by installing a treatment plant for chemical X. Option B is use the money saved on insurance and treatment plant to fund cancer and ecosystem preservation research. So basically, I'll just explain these options. Option A is you're providing health insurance to workers and you're not installing a treatment plant for X, okay, for the chemical X. Second is you do not provide insurance and you do not you do not construct a treatment plant, but what you do is that money that you would have invested in that, you use it to fund cancer and ecosystem preservation research instead. So basically, if I give money for cancer research and they come up with a cure for cancer, or ecosystem preservation research, and they come up with some ideas to reduce the effects of this chemical X, basically. Option C is provide protective equipment and insurance to workers, install a treatment plant for chemical X, and market the product Z as a sustainable product to improve company reputation and sales. So what this means is you are giving some protective equipment like gloves, mask, and all of those things to your workers who are handling this chemical X, and then you install a treatment plant for this chemical X, right? And then you market this product as a sustainable product. All right, and you have D, where you provide equipment, provide insurance to workers, and you are installing a treatment plant also, but you compensate for this cost, the extra cost that you are incurring, right, by increasing the selling price of product Z. So we have some answers already, I think. Okay, fine. Okay, and then we have, all right. So the next question is, the number of hospital beds per 10,000 people in Bangalore city is 22. Okay, if the best and worst values for hypothetical cities are 137 and 3 respectively, find the normalized value of this indicator. Can someone tell me how to calculate this? It's a very simple calculation. I have mentioned the formula for this normalized indicator just a few slides before. So can someone tell me? Okay, there are some questions, right? Okay, I'll answer them. Yeah, sure. Okay, so number of hospital beds per 10,000 people. Okay, so for Bangalore city it is 22 beds per 10,000 people, and then the best and worst values for are 137 and 3. Okay. Okay, got the question? Yeah. Okay. I'll just answer your question. Why do some researchers not consider governance part in this dimensions of sustainability? Many researchers, they include it. It is implicit actually in many of the researchers. Okay, and so they are not considering it separately. Okay, if that answers your question. People do not explicitly mention. All right. And numerical, yeah, that's right, that's right, yeah. Yeah, and to answer your second question, numerical and multivariate data analysis, yes, it could be done. Okay, I have not come across any paper as such. Oh, 0.14, okay, good, okay. I'll give you the answers. I'll give you the answers in the next class, all right? So right now, so this is absolutely right. The actual value minus the minimum value divided by the maximum value minus the minimum value. So do you know what is the purpose of this normalization? Can anyone explain that? Why do we do this normalization? Can anyone explain? Yeah, standard comparison. That is, when you have different indicators and they have different units actually. So if you have to compare greenhouse gas emissions with some economic indicator, let's say income. Okay, greenhouse gas emission is carbon dioxide per whatever, per year or per kilometer, depending on what you are measuring. And income is measured in rupees or dollars, right? Yeah, so in order to be able to compare this, you need to arrive at a dimensionless number. Okay, and that dimensionless number is this. That's why we do the normalization. Okay. So do you have any other questions? Because we still have 7 minutes to go, and I'm at the end of this. So if you have any other questions, you can ask me, or if you want to have a look at the questions again, the 8 questions, in case you want to note them down. The case study, okay, wait, I'll go back to that. I'll show you the, yeah. So you can see in the, you can just search B.S. Reddy and P. Balachandra benchmarking urban sustainability, and then you'll get it. Okay. Okay, I'll repeat the, see the, regarding the PowerPoint presentation, the YouTube link will be shared. You can have a look again, right? This meeting is being recorded, okay, and it will be added to YouTube, so you can go online and you can view it. All right. So I'll just repeat the questions once more. Okay. First question is, so social, economic and environment. You have to find A, B, C and D. Okay. So the intersection of social and economic, then economic and environment, then social and environment, and then the intersection of all three. Okay. Number 2 is sustainable development is said to occur when, and then you have these 4 statements. So which one of it is correct? Okay. So we use resources indiscriminately without consideration for the future, or economic development occurs quickly but economically weaker sections do not make living wages. The needs of all are taken care of, including intergenerational justice. And number 4 is, we do not use any natural resources even if that means our own needs are not met. Okay. Question 3 is, which among the following statements are false? The three main dimensions of sustainability are economic, education and environmental. Some studies have included an additional institutional dimension to measure sustainability. Number C is a combination of indicators is called a composite indicator, and D is combination of composite indicators is a dimension. Okay. Do we have something? Okay. So number four is what is the innovation chain useful for? So maintaining the existing products, introducing new technologies in the market, removing unsuccessful products from the market, or none of the above. Question 4 is done. Question 5, in the innovation chain, the term research and development refers to, and these are the 4 options: basic and applied research only, basic research, applied research and engineering for manufacturing, basic research and design and development, and then you have basic and applied research, design and development and engineering for manufacturing. Then you have question 6, which of the following statements are true? Shareholders' requirements are given utmost importance in a profit-based approach. Then the triple bottom line approach takes care of needs of all stakeholders. C is, emissions of greenhouse gases do not come under the purview of triple bottom line approach, or D, both A and B. Then you have 7, the industry that produces a product Z, and then you have a harmful chemical X which causes human cancer, and if discharged into water bodies it contaminates drinking water sources and destroys marine ecosystem. So the treatment will reduce these effects, but so what should the company do? So A is provide health insurance to workers and save on costs by not installing a treatment plant, or use the money saved on insurance and the treatment plant to fund research on cancer and marine ecosystems. Or C is they can provide protective equipment, insurance, install a treatment plant and market the product said as a sustainable product. Or option D is they can provide all of this and then compensate for this cost by increasing the selling price for product Z. Okay. And then question 8 is the numerical, small numerical number of hospital beds per 10,000 people in Bangalore, and then you have the best and worst values for hypothetical cities. So find the normalized value of this indicator. So I hope everything we are all clear with everything, right? Or do we have any further questions? So if we have no further questions, I'll just stop presenting. Okay, but you guys got all the questions, right? You've noted them down, so we can just have a discussion in the next during the next week. And I hope I was legible enough. I mean, I hope you were able to hear me, and there were no issues with the audio or anything, or the way I spoke. I hope it was understandable to all of you. You can just leave a comment here if there was anything, right? Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for joining. Uh, so yeah, I'll see you all next week. All right, same time, 6 o'clock. And yeah, there is another session on Tuesday, I think 7 to 8. That session will be conducted by another PhD scholar from IIT Roorkee. All right. So her name is Ankita Bhatt. So please attend that session as well. All right. So thank you so much. All right. Uh, Summary. Oh, right now it's a little late for summary. You can do one thing, Mahesh. You can. I'll be uploading this to YouTube, so you can go and visit the lecture again. All right. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. Huh? Yeah, I'll upload this, upload it, and then I don't know who will share the link, whether NPTEL will share the link to you or I should do it. I'll just find out, and then or I can even share it in the discussion forum if that's allowed. All right. Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for joining. So see you all next week, and yeah, have a great weekend, and yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.